Say yes. Billionaire's single dad proposes to a janitor. She whispers, "Will you sign it?" Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We have noticed that the channel has been losing traction lately, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It is quick, completely free, and it allows us to continue bringing you meaningful, emotional stories like this one. Your support truly means everything to us. Let us keep this channel growing together. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Now, before we begin, here is the question that stopped an entire parking lot cold. A billionaire single father knelt down and proposed to a supermarket janitor. She did not say yes. She asked one thing instead: will you sign it? Now, let us go back to our main character. The crowd outside the Mapleway Market stood frozen, as if time itself had paused. It was just after 6 in the evening, the end of another ordinary workday in a quiet Ohio suburb. Shopping carts rattled in the wind. Neon lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled faintly of asphalt and detergent. Then a matte black Range Rover rolled into the parking lot and stopped directly in front of the entrance. People noticed immediately. Cars like that did not belong here. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark tailored coat that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His movements were controlled, deliberate, the kind that came from years of command rather than arrogance. This was Ethan Caldwell, founder and chief executive officer of Caldwell Industries, a real estate and logistics empire worth billions of dollars. A man whose face appeared regularly on business magazines, and a single father whose private life tabloids could never fully crack. Ethan did not look around. He did not care about the phones already lifting into the air. His eyes were locked on one person. At the far end of the sidewalk, beside a row of dented shopping carts, a woman was mopping the concrete. Her uniform was gray, faded from hundreds of washes. Her name tag read Lena Morales, 34 years old, night shift janitor, invisible to almost everyone. Her dark hair was tied back hastily. Her hands were red and raw from chemicals. She moved with quiet efficiency, her head down, focused only on finishing her shift before her babysitter's overtime clock ran out. She heard footsteps approaching. Expensive shoes. Slow. Intentional. When she looked up, confusion flickered across her face. No one ever walked toward her on purpose. Ethan stopped less than 3 feet away. "Lena Morales," he said calmly. Her grip tightened around the mop handle. "Yes." The parking lot had gone silent now. Even the automatic doors seemed to hesitate. Ethan took a breath. Then, without warning, he reached into his coat, pulled out a small black box, and dropped to one knee on the concrete. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Lena," he said, his voice steady but low, "I am asking you to marry me." Someone dropped a grocery bag. A teenager whispered, "Is this real?" A delivery driver slowly raised his phone, already recording. Lena did not move. She stared at him as if he had spoken another language. A billionaire. On one knee. In front of her. After a long, aching pause, she finally spoke. "Stand up," she said quietly. Ethan did. She wiped her hands on her uniform, reached into the pocket of her jacket, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Not shaking. Not rushed. She handed it to him. "If you want me to say yes," Lena said, meeting his eyes for the first time, "you need to read this." Ethan unfolded the paper. It was a contract. Simple. Typed. Precise. His brow furrowed slightly. "What is this?" he asked. Lena's voice did not rise. It did not tremble. "It is my condition," she said. "Before rings. Before cameras. Before your world swallows me whole." She took a breath. "Will you sign it?" Ethan's eyes moved down the page, line by line, as the parking lot held its breath. The black velvet ring box was still open in his hand, but no one was looking at the diamond anymore. They were looking at the paper. Lena watched his face the way you watch a storm cloud, waiting to see if it would pass or break. Ethan swallowed once. "You wrote this." "I did," Lena said. "I typed it at the public library on my lunch break." A few people in the crowd actually laughed at that, not because it was funny, but because the sentence felt impossible. Next to the man standing in a tailored coat worth more than their cars. Ethan lifted his eyes. "Why?" Lena did not look away. "Because men like you do not kneel in parking lots for women like me unless there is a reason." That landed like a slap. Not cruel, just true. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. He looked back down at the contract. There were no fancy legal words. No threatening language. Just simple sentences, like someone building a fence around their dignity. At the top it read, "Personal agreement between Ethan Caldwell and Lena Morales." Below that, 3 numbered sections. Ethan read the first one quietly, then his eyes flicked up. "Section 1, he said, says I will not use your image, your name, or your past as marketing." Lena nodded once. "I am not a brand. I am a person." Ethan's gaze returned to the page. "Section 2, he continued, says there will be no physical expectations. No touching for the cameras. No private pressure." Lena's voice went lower. "I will not be bought." The crowd shifted. A woman near the entrance folded her arms like she was suddenly defensive on Lena's behalf. Ethan read the 3rd section, slower. "Section 3, he said, says if you are disrespected publicly by anyone connected to me, I will correct it immediately. In public. No silence. No excuses." Lena's eyes stayed locked on his. "Because silence is what people use to let cruelty happen." Ethan's throat moved as he swallowed again. For the first time, the billionaire looked like a man standing on unfamiliar ground. He lowered the paper slightly. "This is not what most people would ask for." Lena let out a quiet breath that sounded almost like a laugh, but it was not happy. "Most people have never been called trash while they are cleaning it up," she said. "Most people have never been told they should be grateful for crumbs." The automatic doors opened behind them with a soft whoosh. Warm air spilled out. The smell of rotisserie chicken drifted into the cold evening. Lena did not seem to notice. She took a step closer, her mop still beside her, her hands still stained with work. "I am not saying no," she said. "I am saying I need to know what kind of man is asking." Ethan stared at her for a long moment, then glanced down at the ring box again, like he had forgotten it existed. His voice came out quieter. "You think this is a game." "I think your world plays games," Lena replied. "And I am tired of being the joke." A phone camera zoomed in. Someone whispered, "She is making him sign a contract." Ethan heard it. He did not flinch. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a pen. It was sleek, expensive, silver. The kind of pen people sign billion-dollar deals with. He held it between his fingers like it suddenly weighed more than it should. Lena's eyes flicked to it. Then she looked at him again. "Do not sign it because you are embarrassed," she said. "Do not sign it because people are watching." Ethan exhaled slowly through his nose. His gaze drifted past Lena's shoulder, past the carts, past the crowd. For a split second, he looked somewhere far away. And then his voice changed. "My daughter is watching too," he said softly. Lena blinked. "Your daughter?" Ethan's eyes returned to hers, steadier now, less polished. "She is 8, he said. "She thinks the world is either safe or it is not. I cannot teach her love is real if I treat you like a prop." The air went still again. Lena's grip on her own paper tightened. Her expression did not melt, but something inside her shifted, like a door that had been locked for a long time just clicked once. Ethan lowered the pen to the page. Then he stopped. He looked up at Lena and asked, "If I sign this, what happens next?" Lena did not smile. She simply lifted her chin and said, "Then you stand up beside me in front of everyone, and you repeat your question. Not to a janitor. To a woman you plan to protect." Ethan's hand hovered over the signature line, and the entire parking lot waited for the sound of ink hitting paper. Ethan's hand finally moved. The tip of the pen touched the paper, and for a moment the only sound in the entire parking lot was the soft scratch of ink. A signature formed in clean, confident strokes. Ethan Caldwell. He did not rush. He did not make a show of it. He signed as if this were the most important agreement he had made all year. When he finished, he pulled the pen away and held the paper out to her with both hands. Lena stared at his name for a long second, like she needed to make sure it was real. Then she folded the contract carefully, twice, and slipped it back into her jacket pocket like it was not paper at all, but armor. Ethan's voice came out steady. "Now I stand beside you." He stepped closer, not invading her space, but aligning himself with her, shoulder to shoulder, in full view of everyone. The crowd leaned in. Lena kept her eyes forward. "Ask again," she said. "Like you mean it." Ethan turned slightly, so people could see them both. His posture did not scream power now. It signaled something else. Respect. He lowered himself to one knee again, slower this time, as if the ground mattered. He lifted the ring box. "Lena Morales," he said clearly. I am not asking you as a janitor. I am asking you as a woman I will honor. A ripple went through the crowd. Ethan's gaze held hers. Will you marry me? Lena's throat tightened. She did not cry. She did not smile. She simply looked at the ring, then at his face, then at the phones watching her like she was entertainment. Then she spoke in a voice so calm it forced everyone to actually listen. Yes, she said. The word landed like a bell. Gasps. Cheers. Someone clapped once. Then the whole group followed like a wave. A woman near the entrance wiped at her eyes. A teenage boy whispered, "That was insane," like he had just witnessed history. Ethan slid the ring onto Lena's finger. Her hand was cold from work. Her knuckles were rough. The ring looked almost unreal on her skin, like a bright promise placed onto a life that had never been offered promises before. Lena stared at it for half a heartbeat, then lifted her eyes again. Ethan stood. For the first time, they were the same height. Not because their worlds had become equal, but because he had lowered his pride and she had raised her boundaries. Ethan glanced toward the supermarket doors, then back to Lena. You have a few minutes left on your shift, he said quietly. Lena gave a small nod. I have to put the supplies away. I will wait, Ethan replied. That sentence made Lena's chest tighten. More than the ring did. Men with power usually made people wait for them. Ethan Caldwell was waiting for her. Lena picked up her mop and bucket and rolled them toward the supply closet by the front wall. Her movements stayed calm, but inside she felt like her lungs had forgotten how to take a full breath. Behind her, the crowd buzzed louder now. Is that really him? Why her? Do you think it is real? Someone near the curb muttered, "She is lucky," in a tone that sounded like judgment pretending to be admiration. Lena did not turn around. She just locked the closet, returned the key to the manager on duty, and untied her apron. It was not dramatic. It was not cinematic. It was practical, and that was what made it powerful. When she walked back out, Ethan was still there. He opened the passenger door of the Range Rover himself. Lena stopped short. I cannot get in like this, she said, glancing down at her uniform. I am going to make your seat smell like bleach. Ethan looked at her like he had been expecting that exact sentence. Lena, he said gently, I have had boardrooms full of men who smelled like entitlement. I can handle bleach. For the first time, the corner of Lena's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Almost. She climbed in. The interior was quiet, warm, and expensive. Leather. Subtle wood trim. A scent like clean citrus. Lena sat stiffly at first, hands folded in her lap, as if she had walked into a place she did not have permission to exist. Ethan shut the door, walked around, and got into the driver's seat. The crowd outside was a blur through the tinted windows now. The car pulled away. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan's voice came low, careful. There is something you need to know, he said. Lena stared straight ahead, the ring heavy on her finger. About why you proposed, she replied. Ethan's jaw tightened. Yes, he said. And about why I needed you to say yes before Monday morning. Lena's heart dropped. Monday, she repeated. Ethan glanced at her, then back to the road. My daughter's school is having a family hearing, he said. And the people trying to take my company are also trying to take her from me. Lena turned slowly, disbelief flickering across her face. Ethan's voice went quieter. And they are going to use you against me the second they learn who you are. The ring on Lena's finger suddenly felt less like a gift, and more like the first piece in a war she never agreed to fight. Lena's fingers curled slightly around the strap of her work bag as the Range Rover glided through the evening traffic. Outside, the suburb faded into darker roads and brighter skylines, the kind of roads where streetlights looked like a clean row of promises. Inside the car, the silence was heavy, not empty. Lena stared at Ethan. A family hearing, she repeated. You mean custody? Ethan kept his eyes on the road, but his voice was steady. Yes. Lena's stomach tightened. And people are trying to take your company. Yes, he said again. She looked down at the ring on her finger. The diamond caught the dashboard light, sharp and cold. So this is not just about love, Lena said. Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel, then loosened again like he was forcing himself not to react defensively. I am not going to insult you by lying, he said. It started as something I needed. Lena's jaw set. Needed? Ethan nodded once. My ex-wife's family has been fighting me for years. They have money, connections, and attorneys who do not blink. They could not break me through business, so now they are coming for my daughter. The words hit Lena like a gust of winter air. Her name is Sophie. Ethan continued. She is 8. She has a hearing at school on Monday because they filed a complaint. They are claiming my home is unstable. They are claiming I am not providing a proper family environment. Lena's throat tightened. A school hearing can do that? It starts there, Ethan said. Then it becomes court. Then it becomes a narrative. And narratives can ruin people faster than evidence. Lena's eyes narrowed. And where do I fit into this narrative? Ethan finally glanced at her, and for the first time, the billionaire mask cracked completely. What stared back at her was not arrogance. It was fear. They want to paint me as reckless, he said. As a man who cannot commit. As someone who surrounds himself with people who are temporary. He swallowed. They want to take Sophie away because they think I am a machine. They think I cannot love anyone consistently. They think I do not have a real home. Lena's voice went flat. So you needed a fiancé? Ethan did not deny it. Yes. Lena leaned back against the seat, eyes forward again. Her mind moved faster than the car. A single mother trying to survive. A billionaire fighting a war. And now her name, her face, her past, would be dragged into a battlefield she never asked to enter. She reached into her jacket pocket and touched the folded contract. The paper felt like a lifeline. That is why I asked you to sign it, she said quietly. Ethan nodded. I know. Lena took a slow breath. And you also said your enemies will use me against you. They will, Ethan replied. They will dig into your life. They will twist it. They will try to shame you for being who you are. Lena's laugh was short and bitter. People have been trying to shame me my whole life. It usually works. Ethan's voice softened. Not this time. Lena turned her head. She said into his coat, voice muffled. You are late. I know. Ethan murmured, kissing the top of her head. I am sorry. Then Sophie pulled back and looked past him. Her eyes landed on Lena. The child did not smile. She did not wave. She simply studied Lena with the kind of seriousness only children have, the kind that adults forget how to hold. Ethan turned slightly, keeping Sophie close, but making space for Lena to be seen. Sophie, he said carefully. This is Lena. Sophie's gaze stayed fixed on Lena's uniform, then on the ring, then on Lena's face. She is the one? Sophie asked. Lena's chest tightened at the bluntness. Ethan hesitated for the smallest moment. Then he answered honestly, but gently. Yes, he said. She is. Sophie hugged her rabbit tighter. Is she going to leave too? The question cut so cleanly that Lena forgot where she was. Ethan froze. Lena felt her heart drop as she realized the truth inside that sentence. This was not just a custody fight. This was a little girl who had already learned not to trust promises. Ethan's voice went rough. Sophie. But Lena stepped forward before he could cover it up with adult words. She lowered herself slightly, so she was closer to Sophie's eye level, not towering, not pretending. I do not know you yet, Lena said softly. So, I am not going to promise you things I cannot prove. Sophie blinked, still guarded. Lena continued, her voice calm. But I can tell you this. I do not like people who leave kids confused. If I am here, it will be because I chose to be here. And because you deserve honesty. Sophie stared at her, searching for a lie. Then the little girl's eyes flicked to Ethan. Did she make you sign something? Ethan let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh, surprised. Yes, he admitted. Sophie nodded slowly, as if that answered an important question. Good, she said. Because Daddy signs everything. Lena felt something in her chest shift, tiny but real. Then Sophie looked at Lena again and asked, in the same serious tone, do you know how to make grilled cheese? Lena blinked. Yes. Sophie nodded once, satisfied. Then you can come inside. Ethan looked at Lena, and in his eyes was a silent warning and a silent plea at the same time. This was the moment when the contract stopped being paper and became a door. Inside the house, warmth wrapped around Lena like a blanket she did not know how to accept. The entryway was bright, but not flashy. Cream walls. A wide staircase. Family photos framed along the hallway, the kind that made a place feel lived in, not staged. A faint smell of lemon cleaner mixed with something buttery from the kitchen. Sophie patted across the hardwood floor in her pajamas, still holding her stuffed rabbit like it was a shield. Shoes off, Sophie announced, pointing at Lena's worn work sneakers as if she owned the whole mansion. Lena blinked, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. Sophie paused, suspicious. Do not call me ma'am. That is weird. Lena slipped off her sneakers carefully and set them by the door. Okay, Sophie. Sophie nodded once, satisfied, then turned and marched toward the kitchen like a tiny general. Ethan hovered near Lena for a moment, his voice low. Thank you. Lena looked at him. Do not thank me yet. Ethan's mouth tightened. He accepted that. They followed Sophie into a large kitchen with a massive island and soft lighting under the cabinets. There were kid drawings on the refrigerator held up by magnets, bright crayon rainbows, and stick figure families. On the counter sat a lunchbox with Sophie's name written in marker. Lena stared at it, throat tight. A billionaire's kitchen still had the same small signs of childhood as any other. Sophie hopped onto a stool and folded her arms. So, she said, looking at Lena like a judge, are you my new mom? Ethan froze so hard it looked like someone had pulled his power cord. Lena's heart slammed once. She did not look at Ethan. She kept her attention on Sophie, because Sophie was the only person in the room who deserved the truth without protecting feelings. I am not your mom, Lena said gently. And I am not here to replace anyone. Sophie's eyes narrowed. Then what are you? Lena took a slow breath. I am Lena. I am someone your dad asked to marry him. Sophie stared at the ring again, then looked back up. Why? The question was simple. The answer was not. Ethan stepped forward, voice careful. Sophie, we can talk about this. But Lena raised one hand slightly, stopping him without touching him. Can I answer her? Lena asked. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Lena turned back to Sophie. Your dad asked me because he is in a tough situation, she said. And because I think he needs help. Sophie's eyes widened a little. My dad needs help? Ethan's jaw tightened, but he did not correct her. Lena continued. And you know what? That is not shameful. Everybody needs help sometimes. Sophie stared at her rabbit for a moment, then looked back up. Do you need help? Lena laughed softly, surprised by the sting behind her own eyes. Yes, she admitted. I do. Sophie considered that like it was new information about how the world worked. Then she slid off the stool and padded to the refrigerator, opening it like she had done it 1,000 times. Grilled cheese, she declared. We are testing her. Ethan exhaled, halfway relief and halfway disbelief. Sophie, it is late. Sophie turned, dramatic. If she cannot make grilled cheese, she cannot marry you. That is the rule. Lena blinked. There is a rule. Sophie nodded firmly. Yes. Also, you have to know how to cut sandwiches into triangles. Nodded once, then climbed down and wandered toward the living room, dragging her rabbit behind her. The moment Sophie left, the air changed. Ethan stepped closer, voice low. You handled that better than I could have. Lena kept her tone even. Kids can smell fake. So can I. Ethan's eyes flicked to her jacket pocket. The contract. Lena touched it through the fabric. It is not just for me, she said. It is for her too. Ethan's face tightened. I know. Lena looked him straight in the eye. Then tell me the truth. All of it. Ethan swallowed. Not here. Then where? Lena asked. Because Monday is coming. Ethan glanced toward the hallway, toward the sound of Sophie turning on a television. He lowered his voice further. My office. After she is asleep. Lena nodded, but her heart was still pounding. Because now she understood something clearly. The ring was not the most dangerous thing on her finger. The most dangerous thing was the promise she had just made to an 8-year-old girl who was terrified of being left again. And Lena Morales had spent her whole life surviving. But surviving was not the same as protecting someone else. Upstairs, Sophie's laugh floated out from the living room, small and bright. Lena listened to it, and the contract in her pocket suddenly felt less like a shield. It felt like a line she had drawn. A line Ethan Caldwell was going to have to defend. Sophie fell asleep on the living room couch with her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin, her small hand still curled like she was holding on to something invisible. Ethan carried her upstairs carefully, like he was transporting something sacred. Lena stayed in the kitchen, rinsing the pan and wiping the counter out of habit. It was what she did when her mind was too full. Work was the only thing that had ever kept her steady. When Ethan came back down, the house felt quieter, heavier. He gestured toward a hallway. My office is this way. Lena followed him past framed family photos. In one, Sophie was missing a front tooth, grinning so wide it looked like she could split the world open with joy. In another, Ethan held her in his arms on a beach, his smile real, unguarded. Lena wondered who had taken those pictures, and why the woman behind. The camera was not here anymore. Ethan's office was not like the glossy rooms Lena had imagined from television. It was warm, lived in, shelves filled with books, a couch with a folded throw blanket, a desk cluttered with school papers beside corporate folders, like his life was always balancing on the edge of two worlds. He closed the door gently. Then he looked at Lena and said, "You asked for the truth. Here it is." Lena crossed her arms, bracing herself. "Start with Monday." Ethan nodded. Monday morning, Sophie's school board meets with a family advocate and a private investigator hired by my ex-wife's parents. They claim Sophie has been showing signs of emotional distress. Lena's stomach tightened. "Does she?" Ethan's eyes flickered with pain. "She has nightmares. She is scared of being left. She is 8 years old, and she has already learned to count exits." Lena swallowed hard. Ethan continued, forcing the words out evenly. "They want to move her to a different school and place her with them temporarily. Temporarily becomes permanently when the right judge believes the right story." Lena's voice went low. "Why do they hate you that much?" Ethan leaned against the desk, as if standing upright took effort. "Because I did not stay controllable." Lena frowned. "Explain." Ethan exhaled. "My ex-wife, Claire, was part of an old family with money that thinks money equals authority. When Sophie was born, they offered to fund my expansion plans. In return, they wanted control over my board, control over my voting shares, control over my future." Lena stared. "And you said no." "I said no," Ethan confirmed. "Claire left 2 years later. Not because she did not love Sophie. She loved her, but she loved her family's approval more." The words were blunt, but Ethan did not say them with anger. He said them like a man who had already mourned. Lena's chest tightened again, thinking of Sophie's question. "Is she going to leave too?" Ethan's eyes lifted to meet Lena's. "They are using Sophie to punish me." Lena took a slow breath. "And your company?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Caldwell Industries has a board vote on Tuesday. A hostile takeover attempt is in motion. They are trying to paint me as unstable, distracted, unfit to lead." Lena's voice was sharp now. "So you thought, if you had a fiancé, you would look stable?" Ethan did not flinch. "Yes." Lena stepped closer, the ring on her finger catching the light as her hand moved. "So I become evidence." Ethan's gaze dropped to the ring, then back to her face. "You become a target." Lena's throat went dry. "You should have told me before you put this on my hand." Ethan's voice softened, but it did not weaken. "I tried to tell you in the car. I did not finish because I saw your face." Lena's eyes narrowed. "What did you see?" Ethan swallowed. "I saw someone who has been used before." Silence filled the room like smoke. Lena's fingers pressed against her jacket pocket, feeling the folded contract. "That is why I wrote that paper," she said. "Because I have been the joke. I have been the cautionary tale people tell each other to feel smarter." Ethan nodded slowly. "I know." Lena looked at him, steady and unblinking. "Then tell me what you are really asking for." Ethan stepped away from the desk and came closer, careful not to crowd her. "I am asking you to stand beside me on Monday," he said. "At the school. In front of people who believe a woman like you should never be near a man like me. I am asking you to let them see that I have a home, and Sophie has someone who does not run." Lena's chest tightened. "And in return?" Ethan's gaze held hers. "In return, I will protect you the way you demanded I protect you. Not privately. Publicly. Every time." Lena's voice was quiet now. "And if your enemies destroy my life anyway?" Ethan's answer came without hesitation. "Then I rebuild it with you." Lena stared at him, searching for the first crack of a lie. All she saw was exhaustion, fear, and something else she had not expected. Resolve. Down the hall, the house creaked softly, settling into night. Somewhere upstairs, Sophie murmured in her sleep. Lena's heart clenched, because now she understood the true weight of what Ethan had done in that parking lot. He had not just asked her to marry him. He had asked her to step into a storm, and the storm was coming in the morning. The deepest secrets are about to change everything. Subscribe now to catch the dramatic twist that is coming in the next chapter. Lena barely slept. She lay in the guest room Ethan had prepared, staring at the ceiling as if it might give her a safer answer than her own mind. The sheets were soft, the room was quiet, but her chest stayed tight, like her body did not trust comfort. At 5:30 in the morning, she heard movement in the hallway. A small door creaked. Tiny footsteps. Then silence. Lena sat up, listened again, and slipped out of bed. Downstairs, the kitchen light was on. Sophie stood on a stool at the counter, pouring cereal into a bowl with the seriousness of a scientist. She froze when she saw Lena. "You are awake," Sophie said. "So are you," Lena replied gently. Sophie shrugged one shoulder like it was no big deal. "I wake up when my brain is loud." Lena felt that sentence land in her ribs. "What does your brain say?" Lena asked softly. Sophie stared at the cereal box for a moment. "It says people leave. Then it says I should not care. But I care." Lena stepped closer, careful, not rushing. "That makes sense," she said. "Caring does not make you weak." Sophie's eyes flicked up. "Do you care?" Lena hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Yes." Sophie looked down at Lena's hand, at the ring. "So you are really going to be here on Monday?" Lena's throat tightened. "Yes," she said again, quieter. "I will be there." Sophie took a bite of cereal, chewed slowly. "If they are mean to you, will you cry?" Lena blinked. "Maybe," she admitted. "But if I cry, I will still stand there." Sophie considered that, then nodded as if Lena had just passed a second test. Footsteps sounded behind them. Ethan entered the kitchen wearing a simple dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, his hair slightly messy like he had only slept in pieces. When he saw Sophie and Lena together, something in his face softened, then tightened with worry. "Good morning," he said, voice low. Sophie pointed her spoon at him. "Do not mess this up." Ethan paused. "Okay." Sophie slid off the stool and walked toward Ethan, holding up her arms. He lifted her into his embrace automatically, like muscle memory. She leaned close to his ear and whispered something. Ethan's eyes closed for a moment, and when he opened them, he looked at Lena like he had just been handed a responsibility. That mattered more than every board vote in his life. Sophie wriggled down and padded out of the kitchen, rabbit tucked under her arm, leaving the two adults alone in the soft hum of the refrigerator. Ethan cleared his throat. "She asked me if you were going to leave." Lena nodded slowly. "She asked me to." Ethan's gaze held hers. "And what did you say?" "I said I would not promise what I cannot prove," Lena replied. "But I also said I would show up." Ethan exhaled like he had been holding his breath since the parking lot. "Thank you." Lena's eyes narrowed. "Do not thank me. Prepare me." Ethan's jaw tightened. "They will try to humiliate you." Lena's voice stayed even. "Then you will do what you signed." Ethan nodded once. "Yes." Lena reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out the folded contract. She did not wave it. She did not threaten him with it. She simply placed it on the kitchen counter between them like a boundary drawn in ink. Ethan stared at it, then looked up. "I meant my signature." "I know," Lena said. "That is why I am still here." For a beat, there was silence. Then Ethan said the sentence that changed the air. "There is one more thing you need to know before Monday." Lena's stomach dropped. "What?" Ethan's eyes hardened, the protective father and the ruthless executive snapping into place at the same time. "My ex-wife's father hired someone to follow you last night," he said. "They already know where you work, and they are going to come for you before we even walk into that school." Lena felt her pulse spike. Ethan stepped closer, voice firm. "If you want to back out, I will understand." Lena stared at him, then glanced toward the hallway where Sophie had disappeared. Then she lifted her chin. "No," Lena said. "If they want to see whether I can be erased, they picked the wrong woman." Ethan's eyes flashed with something like respect. And outside, as morning light began to stretch across the quiet neighborhood, a black sedan rolled slowly past the gate, cameras hidden behind tinted glass, watching the house like a predator waiting for a door to open. Monday morning arrived like a verdict. The sky was pale and cold, the kind of gray that made the world feel honest and unforgiving. Lena stood in front of the hallway mirror in the guest room, adjusting the collar of a simple navy blouse Ethan's housekeeper had laid out for her. It was not designer. It was not flashy. It was clean, fitted, and dignified. She stared at the ring on her finger for one long breath, then slid her hand into her coat pocket and touched the folded contract like it was a heartbeat. Downstairs, Sophie waited by the front door with her backpack on, rabbit tucked under one arm. She looked at Lena from head to toe. "You look like a teacher," Sophie declared. Lena blinked. "Is that good?" Sophie nodded solemnly. "Teachers do not run away. They stay in the room." Ethan stepped into the entryway in a dark suit, his tie straight, his posture controlled. But Lena noticed the way his jaw kept tightening, releasing, tightening again. Fear disguised as discipline. "Ready?" Ethan asked, voice low. Lena did not say yes right away. She looked at Sophie. Sophie lifted her chin. We go together. Lena nodded. We go together. They drove in silence, the kind of silence filled with prayers nobody said out loud. As the car turned into the school parking lot, Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. And Lena saw it. A black sedan parked across the street, angled just enough to watch. Another car farther down. People standing near the entrance who did not belong to the morning chaos of parents and kids. Ethan's voice came flat. They are here. Lena's mouth went dry. How many? Enough, Ethan said. He parked, stepped out, and opened the door for Sophie first. The little girl hopped down, grabbed Ethan's hand, then reached for Lena's. For a second, Lena froze. Then she took Sophie's hand. It was warm, small, trusting in a way that felt dangerous. They walked toward the entrance. A man in a crisp coat stepped forward as if he had been waiting for the exact second Lena appeared. Silver hair, expensive watch, cold smile. Beside him stood a woman with perfect makeup and eyes that did not soften when she looked at Sophie. Ethan's voice dropped. That is Victor Harrington, Claire's father. Lena's stomach twisted. Victor's gaze moved to Lena's ring, then to Lena's face, then down to Lena's shoes like he was measuring her worth in silence. Well, Victor said smoothly, loud enough for people nearby to hear. This is unexpected. The woman beside him, Claire, did not greet Sophie. She only stared at Lena. Ethan, Claire said, voice controlled. Is this some kind of stunt? Lena felt Sophie's fingers tighten around hers. Ethan's posture stayed calm, but his eyes hardened. This is my fiancée, Lena Morales. Victor's smile widened. Morales, he repeated, tasting the name. And where did you find her, Ethan? At a bar. On the street. Or did you pick her up at the store like a forgotten item? Lena felt heat rise behind her eyes, but she did not move. Victor's gaze flicked to the school entrance where a few parents had slowed, watching. A phone lifted. A whisper traveled. Victor continued, louder now. Is she employed? Does she have a stable background? Does she have any idea what she is stepping into? Claire's eyes narrowed. I have already seen her, she said. Mapleway Market. She cleans toilets. The sentence was meant to dirty Lena's name. Lena took a slow breath. Ethan shifted slightly, stepping closer to Lena, aligning himself beside her the way he promised in the parking lot. Victor's eyes gleamed. A janitor, he said with theatrical disbelief. And you expect the school board to believe this is a stable environment for Sophie. Sophie's head snapped up. Do not talk about her like that, she said sharply. Claire finally looked at her daughter then. Sophie, sweetheart. Sophie cut her off. You did not even say hi. The words hit the air like a small explosion. Parents nearby went quiet. A teacher at the door paused, hand on the handle. Victor's smile faltered for a split second, then returned. Ethan, Victor said, voice silky. You are humiliating yourself. Lena felt Ethan's breath change, the way it did when a man was about to choose between silence and war. Then Ethan spoke, clear and loud enough for everyone to hear. No, Ethan said. You are trying to humiliate her, and I will not allow it. Victor's eyes sharpened. Excuse me. Ethan turned slightly toward the watching crowd, toward the school entrance, toward every person who thought status was character. This woman works, Ethan said. She shows up. She tells the truth. She does not hide behind money to feel important. He looked at Victor directly. And she is not beneath me. She is the reason I am standing here with my daughter. Today, instead of letting you rewrite our lives. Lena's chest tightened. Victor's jaw flexed. Claire's eyes flashed. Ethan kept going, voice steady, controlled, lethal in its honesty. You want to judge her job, he said. Then judge me too. Because I signed an agreement to protect her dignity, and I will defend it right here. Lena's fingers tightened around Sophie's hand. Because now the test had started. And the whole school was watching whether Ethan Caldwell's signature meant anything at all. The hallway outside the school conference room felt too bright, too sterile, like a place where families got measured and labeled. Victor Harrington stood with his attorney and a thin man holding a leather folder, the kind of folder that carried lies dressed as facts. Claire stayed a step behind, arms folded, eyes hard. Ethan held Sophie's hand. Lena held Sophie's other hand. Not as a performance, as a decision. A school administrator opened the door. Mr. Caldwell, Ms. Harrington, please come in. We will begin. Victor's smile returned, confident. After you. Inside, 3 board members sat at a long table. A child advocate, a counselor, and a note-taker waited quietly. The air smelled like printer ink and coffee. Ethan sat down first. Sophie sat beside him. Lena sat on the other side of Sophie, not touching Ethan, not clinging, not pretending. Just present. The counselor began gently. We are here to discuss concerns raised about Sophie's emotional well-being and home stability. Victor slid a packet across the table. We have documented evidence. The household is chaotic. Mr. Caldwell's romantic life is impulsive. He engaged to a woman he met under questionable circumstances. His eyes flicked toward Lena with a look that tried to reduce her to a stain. Furthermore, Victor continued, Ms. Morales has no place in a high-conflict custody environment. Her employment situation. Lena inhaled slowly, but Ethan spoke before the insult could land. Stop, Ethan said, calm, firm. You do not get to drag her job into this like it is evidence of bad character. Victor raised his brows. Then provide a better explanation, Ethan. Why her? Why now? Ethan looked at the board members, then at Sophie, then at Lena. Because my daughter needs adults who tell the truth, he said. And for too long, I thought protecting her meant fighting alone. I was wrong. The child advocate leaned forward slightly. Mr. Caldwell, are you saying your engagement is genuine? Lena's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. We are not here to sell a fairy tale, she said. We are here to stop people from using Sophie as a weapon. Victor let out a quiet laugh. How noble. Lena turned to him without flinching. I clean floors for a living. I know what happens when people spill something ugly and expect someone else to wipe it up. Not today. A silence settled over the room. Then the thin man with the leather folder cleared his throat. Excuse me, he said carefully. There is also a financial concern that must be addressed. Victor's smile sharpened. Yes. Mr. Caldwell's instability has impacted the company, which impacts the household. Ethan's eyes narrowed. That is not why we are here. But the board chair held up a hand. If there is relevant information, we will hear it. The thin man swallowed. I was instructed to deliver documentation from Harrington Holdings' private security division. Victor's expression changed by 1 degree. Proceed. The man opened the folder and pulled out printed emails, time-stamped, with highlighted lines. These documents, he said, voice shaking slightly, show an organized effort to manufacture distress at Sophie's school. Anonymous complaints. Paid witnesses. A directive to provoke public conflict today for recording purposes. Claire's face went pale. Victor's jaw tightened. This is absurd. The man continued, eyes on the paper. There is also an expense report authorizing surveillance of Ms. Morales, including photographing her workplace, and a note that reads, Make the janitor look unfit. The note-taker stopped typing. The counselor stared. The child advocate's voice went cold. Mr. Harrington, are you admitting you orchestrated intimidation against a private citizen? Victor stood abruptly. This is a misinterpretation. Ethan did not raise his voice. He did not slam the table. He simply reached into his coat, pulled out the folded contract Lena had written, and placed it on the table. This is what I signed, Ethan said. A promise that if anyone tried to shame her publicly, I would correct it immediately. Formal review of the documented harassment. Victor's face drained of color. Claire's mouth opened, then closed. Ethan stood, and Sophie stood with him. Lena rose too, steady, unbowed. As they walked out, Victor's voice followed them, low and venomous. This is not over. Ethan turned back once. His eyes were ice. It is over, he said. Because you cannot rewrite a family with lies. Outside, Sophie breathed like she had been holding her lungs shut all morning. She looked up at Lena. You did not run. Lena swallowed hard. I told you I would show up. Sophie nodded, then looked at Ethan. Daddy, she said, serious as a vow. Do not ever let them talk about her like that again. Ethan's voice softened. I will not. Later that night, after Sophie fell asleep with her rabbit tucked under her chin, Ethan and Lena stood in the quiet kitchen. Ethan held the contract in his hands, then set it down gently. I needed that paper, he admitted. It forced me to be the man Sophie needs. It forced me to be the man you deserve. Lena's voice was quiet. And what do you want now? Ethan took a breath, and his eyes shone with a kind of honesty that did not need cameras. I want to ask you again, he said. Not because of Monday. Not because of the board. Not because of fear. He reached for her hand, not pulling, just offering. Because you stood in the storm and did not flinch. Lena looked at him, then down at the ring. then toward the hallway where Sophie slept. Her chest rose and fell slowly. This time, Lena said, "Do not ask a janitor." Ethan nodded, voice breaking just slightly. "Lena Morales, will you marry me as the woman I love?" And Lena finally let her breath go. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." Thank you for joining us for this cinematic adventure. If you want more untold stories of billionaire love and redemption, please subscribe and choose your next true heart journey on your screen now.